I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're almost close to Friday. Shout out to everyone watching on Rockfin, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm going to go ahead and shout out some people in the chat. What's going on? It's Distortion. Love your show. Good vibes. Thank you so much. Awesome. Joe, OWS, what's going on? AOC, Bernie, the squad, regardless of who was put into office, the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, will emasculate them. Change can only come from bottom up by the people and for the people. Thank you so much, Joe. Definitely, I agree. What's going on, Steve? He says, hello, Sabby and everyone. Always great to see you. Shout out to Sean M. Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody is feeling well. Awesome. What's going on, Kim? She says, hey, Sabby. Lawrence, it's always great to see you. Doobie doo. Shout out to Eric Thomas, who's a Sabby member. Happy Wednesday, all. Happy Wednesday, Eric. Greetings, Shayar. Good evening to all Sabby misfits. All right. Little Rock Elevators. I'm simulcasting between you and Jimmy live streams. Oh, God. I still don't know how you guys do that. What's going on? Shout out. What's going on, Troy C? Too many dang shows on at the same time. That, Kim. Yeah, I know. Wednesday is a big day. A lot of people stream at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. Shout out to Ocean Transiter. Imagine calling people Nazis for presenting facts. Some on the left are as hyperbolic as the right. Oh, Ocean Transitor, I'm not going to get into that tonight. But the divide is real. It is real. What's going on, Jesse Jet? He says, hi, Sabby. Everyone, Jesse Jet is the one who made my theme song, the doobie doo. What's going on, Carlos Pina? Happy hump day, everybody. Always great to see you. What's going on, Jacory? Peace, Sabby. I'm a recent subscriber, and I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much, Jacory, and welcome. I noticed I've been seeing a lot of new faces the past couple of weeks. What's going on, Robert Hutchings? Good evening, comrades. I hope this finds you well and safe. I hope so, too. Shout out, Notori. Always a pleasure to see you. Greetings, Nancy. Hello, Sabby from Illinois. All right. Are you close to Chicago? I've been to Chicago. Really good food. Greetings. Justin says, Ein Vorlicher Mitwatch. Happy Wednesday. Greetings. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. And what's going on, Malik? It's great to see you as well. And what's going on? Brandy Weaver says, hello, Sabby. And Aya says, Sabster. Greetings. What is going on all? Okay. If you are new, I want you to know Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of the Fred Hampton Leftist Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Fridays for the Sabby Sabs show. You can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. What's going on, Ashura? People have lost all bowel movements. You know what subject? Oh my God. It's happening. Shout out Infamous 0924. Hit the like and share. Yes, do that, guys. That helps me with the algorithm. Okay, guys, I have a couple of stories to get into tonight, and I think I'm going to start with, let me share my screen. I share my screen because I have a couple of things to talk about. Let me put it up here. Doobie-doobie-doo. All right, here's my thumbnail. Here we go. Let's get into it. Tonight, I'm going to talk about Rania Khalek versus Rokhana. What happened there? That's a really good story. We're going to talk about free Julius Jones. Now, this is a story that is not getting enough attention. I want to cover that tonight. Julius Jones is set to be executed tomorrow. So I got to get into that story. And please, I want you to share that with as many people as possible. He needs as much help as we can give him at this point. And Is Kamala being replaced? What is going on at the White House? I'm going to get into that story as well. So let's go ahead and start with Rania Khalek versus Rokhana. Now, Rokhana is not having a good month. Let's just be honest. He's gone on several shows. He's pretty much been ratioed on all of them that I've seen so far. He is just not having a good time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because he said something recently that was really cringe. I do not support imperialism, and Rokhana has gone down that road. So let me see. Oh, I don't like it that way. Okay. So this is in reference to Nicaragua. So I don't know if you guys know what's going on there. I'm going to get into that a little bit right after I explain this beef that's going on with him and Rania Khalek. But this is what Rokhana said. My statement on new sanctions. Washington, D.C. I firmly oppose broad-based economic sanctions that indiscriminately harm millions of innocent civilians. While I voted in favor of targeted sanctions on Maduro and Venezuelan officials, I led over a dozen of my colleagues in criticizing the Trump administration's overboard economic sanctions and again joined a growing number that condemned them in August. Okay. I was among the 80 House members who called on President Biden to seek and end the embargo against Cuba, a position backed by 184 countries, including all of our NATO allies. It is wrong and counterproductive for U.S. policy to inflict harm on innocent families due to the actions of their government. Hold that statement in your head because I'm going to come back to that. He goes on to say, I continue to believe that targeted sanctions can be an appropriate tool, incentivize adherence to human rights norms, and punish officials who seek to enrich themselves through corruption. I voted in support of the Renitzer Act to increase targeted pressure on Nicaragua's leadership and security forces for their actions. They have been widely criticized as endangering democracy. Here we go. We should apply these sanctions fairly. However, including against other notorious human rights violating regimes. As the Biden administration implements Renitzer, it should be careful to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. Our policy should reflect an awareness of the tragic history of the U.S. intervention in Nicaragua and the region, and I want to add in other countries as well. After more than a century of heavy-handed tactics towards Latin America, we should ensure that U.S. policy truly reflects the will of all the people in the hemisphere. Okay. Many left of center governments and leaders in the region have criticized the actions of the Nicaraguan government, and the U.S. should seek to build a broad coalition rather than pursue unilateralism that leaves the U.S. isolated. U.S. policy also must avoid exacerbating economic and political instability at a time when Nicaragua's economy is just beginning to recover from a recession. Before the crisis, relatively few Nicaraguans were forced to make the dangerous journey north, during which migrants often face human rights violations such as sexual assault and death. U.S. policy must hold human rights violators accountable while also promoting economic development and empowering a private sector that can help Nicaraguans live a better life that is less dependent on the state. So again, it kind of goes back on what he said in the beginning, that he feels like it is wrong and counterproductive for U.S. policy to inflict harm on innocent families due to their actions of the government. But the U.S. is continuing to do that. Now, this is where Rania Khaled comes in. Uh-oh, where'd I go? Oh, hold on. Give me just a second. I'm going to reshare that because he Infamous said, what the F, bro? Like, seriously, like it's almost like I feel like he should have just stopped at the beginning of his statement and not continued on, because he's kind of talking in the middle here. He's like, well, yeah, I don't think we should really do that, but I also think that we should do that. So this is what Rania Khalek said. So she retweeted this and said, the belief that you have the right to moralize to the rest of the world about who should be punished for what violent American empire considers bad behavior, which is often based on lies, is imperialism under the guise of human rights and anti-corruption. Shameful. Sanctions kill. That's important to note. That is important to note. She goes on to say, to defend sanctions on Nicaragua as a progressive is embarrassing. You're defending impoverishing millions of people, denying them access to basic necessities, all to further the agenda of the American imperialists. And she's 100% right here. There is nothing targeted, progressive, or humanitarian about that. Let me pop out. Because, see, I just don't understand how you can say that you're progressive and you support imperialism. The United States has like intervened. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at some of the comments in the chat. Has intervened in so many countries throughout the world. And every time we have done so, the people in those countries have been worse off than they were before we intervened. Think about what the United States government has done to Haiti. We had to put our hands in everything, and we mess it up. Now, if you're not familiar with what is going on in Nicaragua, I'm going to show you that as well. John said Rokhana hates democratically elected governments in Nicaragua and Venezuela, but yeah, he's a progressive. He's the acceptable face of the subhuman two-party system if you ignore all he says and does. Well said, John. Well said. Creative Experiment said the white man enjoys starving kids. Oh boy. Oh boy. Phenomenal Mysticism says Rokhana is a pseudo-leftist and a U.S. exceptionalist. Here you go. Now I want to show you what's going on in Nicaragua. Let's talk about those sanctions. So I'm going to share my screen. And Fiorella from Convo Couch was actually just in Nicaragua. So it's one of those times I'm like, man, I should have like brought her on. But this was kind of last minute because I came up with these stories today. So listen to this. The United States, Britain, Canada, all three slapped sanctions on Nicaraguan officials in coordinated action. So it's not just the US, Britain, and Canada as well. All right. It says the United States, Britain, and Canada imposed sanctions on Nicaraguan officials on Monday in a concerted response to an election that many countries have denounced as rigged in favor of President Daniel Ortega. The Biden administration slapped punitive measures on 9 Nicaraguans, while the UK targeted 8, including Vice President Rosario, Ortega's wife, considered a power broker who rules alongside the former Marxist guerrilla leader. Now let's come down here. The U.S. sanctions, which included the energy minister, vice minister of finance, and the entire government ministry, followed Ortega's re-election to a 4th consecutive term on November 7th after jailing political rivals and cracking down on critical media. President Joe Biden has accused Ortega of organizing a pantomime election in the Central American nation, and U.S. officials have pledged to work with allies to ratchet up the pressure. So you know what's really interesting to me? Let me come out, because I have another one I want to show you too. So it's not okay for Russia to interfere in our elections, which they still claiming happened. This is what Hillary is saying, the Hillary group. I swear if I see that woman on TV one more time, I'm just going to scream. I am just going to scream. So that's not okay. But it's okay for the United States to interfere in other countries' elections. This is another example where for the US government, the rule doesn't apply to us. It's okay for us to do it to them, but it's not okay for them to do it to us, which I still question the whole Russia thing. I told you guys I didn't believe Russiagate was like a real thing to begin with anyway. I think we need to stop blaming Russia. So that is what is happening here. Interfering in other countries. I have another article I want to show you about this situation. This is absolutely ridiculous. Let me share my screen. Because I, for one, don't feel it is our place or the United States government's place to intervene. And I've said this multiple times before. We have no business intervening in another country's government or their elections because we, number one, that's not our space. That's not our home. And number two, we can't even fix things here in the United States. We can't even fix our own government. We can't even fix our own elections. How are we going to go to another country and fix theirs? It's absolutely ridiculous. So what I wanted to show you in this article, let me go down. Okay, yeah, this is the one. The Organization of American States has criticized Nicaragua's presidential elections. Okay. Panning President Daniel Ortega's victory as unfair and urging future action. Okay. Ortega clinched a fourth consecutive term in office last Sunday. You know about the jailing part. I just told you about that. And then we come down here. The resolution says the November 7 elections were not free, fair, or transparent and lack democratic legitimacy. Again, who are we to get ourselves involved in this? Who are we? We can't even make it so that everyone can vote in this country. We still have issues where when people go to vote, they're waiting in line for like hours. Now, Fiorella was recently on FHL during the General Strike Summit, and one of the things that she mentioned, I'll never forget this, she said that in Nicaragua, they actually have a smoother election process than we do. So how dare we go over there and screw up their stuff? Whether we feel their process is the way it should be or not, that is really none of our fucking business. And this is the thing that bothers me about the United States. They get our hands in every freaking thing, things that have nothing to do with us. Going on, we have witnessed another attack against the free, dignified, and sovereign people of Nicaragua, which will go down in history as one of the worst aggressions against democracy. Now, that's from Michael Campbell, Nicaragua's representative in the OAS. Previous efforts by the OAS to pressure Nicaragua's government to embark on more democratic path have yielded almost no results, with Ortega consolidating his power and locking up his presidential opponents. Let me come out. So the statement that Rokhana gave, it was basically like he's saying like, well, yeah, you know, I don't think we should issue sanctions because it can hurt people. Then later on, but these are these situations where we need to intervene. We need to enter. So no, this is not okay. Innocent people are killed. Children, women, they care about the women and children so much, right? Every time we get involved in these issues, we mess up their countries. Every time. And then we get upset when they try to come to the United States to get a better life because we already messed up theirs in their country. The Biden administration has no business being involved in this at all. Again, he should be concentrating on his next election, which he apparently is not, because he is polling very low. But yet here we are again. So I can't even, like, for Rokhana to even put out that tweet, what was he thinking? He just made progressives look so bad. Because once again, it's like, I told you guys this before, Rokhana is not progressive. He keeps proving me right instead of proving me wrong. Prove me wrong, Rokhana. You have not done that. So Rania Khalek had every right to ratio him. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat. Valerie said, our elections aren't fair and free. Look at our primaries. Exactly. How are we going to go dictate this in another country? We can't even figure it out here. We can't even make it so that everyone is registered to vote in this country. Everyone that's of age is eligible to vote in this country. We can't even do that. We can't even stop redlining. Come on. It's just a hot mess. It's just a hot mess. Its Distortion says they have been screaming corrupt elections for 6 years now. Unbabysit elections. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Bill said, Fee also said Nicaragua's system would be considered right wing in the US. Yeah, she did say that. But that's because we have different systems here. But at the same time, they've obviously figured out something that works for them. And we still can't figure out something that works for us. And it's 2021 and people are still having issues when they go to vote. There are still thousands and thousands of ballots that aren't even counted. And this is like every time, like not just for presidential elections, other ones as well. But we're going to go tell another country how to fix theirs. Give me a break. It is not up to us to decide who their leader should be. Has this like worked out for us before? No, it is not. No, it is not. People don't like to talk about this, but I'm going to mention it. We got so involved with Saddam Hussein. Remember when they told us he had weapons of mass destruction? Remember that? That's why we went over there to fight. Then we found out that was a lie. Of course. One of the things that some people may not realize is that even though Saddam Hussein was a tyrant, when we took Saddam Hussein out, that actually opened the door to ISIS. So the people were worse off after we intervened. A lot of people don't talk about that. I'm going to talk about it. So they were actually better off when Saddam was in power. People there have said this themselves. When he was there, he was able to keep those things in check. Now, again, he was not a great leader. He did some awful things. I'll admit that. But our intervention made life for people there worse. We do not learn. And like I said, a lot of times it has to do with resources. The US government make it seem like we're going over there to help the women and the children. But if we're helping the women and the children, why are innocent people being killed? Every time. Steve said, Sabby, Convo Couch was on with Jimmy just before you went on today. Oh, okay. Well, I guess Fee wouldn't have been able to come on anyway. Thanks for letting me know. Bill said no mail-in ballots, ID required, I think. Right. And even that mail-in thing, that was new for us. It was only because of like the pandemic. Eric Thomas said the global South is none of our business. No, it's not. We need to stay out of these affairs. This has gone on for too long. Too long. Sorry, I'm going through some of the comments. Bill said we mess up their countries on behalf of big business. We had to sanction Venezuela on behalf of the oil industry. Nationalized wells undercut the global commodities market. Again, like I told you, there's always something in it for us. We don't do it just to be nice. We're not doing it to help them. Infamous said Biden probably can't remember what day it is. Oh, man. Oh, man. Here come the comments. Here come the comments. Leah said Biden is using his short time in office wisely. And she does the hand face here. I see you. I see you. I hear you. I hear you. Oh, wow. There's a lot of comments. Joe OWS said the United States of America has nearly 3,000 military bases around the world. We are not the good guys. That is very true. We have really become the world's police. We really have. Quaker Socialist, what's up? Quaker Socialist says Julius Jones should be freed. I'm going into that story next. That story needs more promotion, you guys, because a lot of people don't know about it. Everyone I mentioned it to today didn't even know this story was happening. So we got to get that out there, because that's the thing. While mainstream media has us focused on Kyle Rittenhouse, and don't get me wrong, that needs to be talked about. This is happening, and a lot of people are not talking about it. So I'm going to get into that story in just a second. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen. So I should give you a rundown. I'm going to show you this video about Julius Jones. Now, for those of you who don't know, let me make sure the volume is okay. It is. For those of you who don't know, Julius Jones, I believe he was a football player. I know that Baker Mayfield, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Baker Mayfield, but he plays, he's a quarterback. I think he plays for the Browns. I think he still plays for the Browns. I don't know. You know, they're switching like every other year. But he actually wrote a letter last year to the governor of Oklahoma to offer clemency to Julius Jones. Now, I want to show you the video because the family, they were asking to meet with the governor so that their son could get clemency. And then I'm going to show you the story. So let me go ahead and share my screen because everybody needs to know about this story. Go into my Chrome tab. Go into my Chrome tab. All right.
Life and death.
Give me just a
Julius
second.
Jones delivering a letter to the
Trying to make it bigger and oh, let me increase my volume because. All right, there we go.
governor. What she
Okay, so let me tell you what's going on. So Julius Jones was convicted of murder. He's been in prison for 20 years. He was sentenced to death. And I, for one, do not believe in the death penalty. I never have. I never will. I don't think that it is humane. I don't think that we should be the ones who to decide, yes, this person needs to die. No, I've never agreed with that. Here's the problem. Recently, new evidence has surfaced. And I want to give you a rundown about some of the things about Julius Jones, because Julius Jones is still saying to this day that he is innocent, that he did not kill Thomas. And let me share my screen and I want to show you these statements about Julius Jones, because this is really important. 8 facts about Julius Jones, innocent on death row in Oklahoma. So this is him when he was arrested. It's been 20 years. Julius Jones has been on death row in Oklahoma for 19 years for a 1999 murder he always said he had no part in. Mr. Jones, who is represented by federal attorneys Dale Bach and Amanda Bass, was convicted and sentenced to death at the age of 19. 19 years old, ladies and gentlemen. And now spent half of his life in prison waiting to be executed for a crime that new and compelling evidence suggests he didn't commit. More than 6.3 million people and counting have signed a petition supporting Mr. Jones in his fight to prove his innocence. Despite this, Mr. Jones' execution has been scheduled for November 18th. Guys, that's tomorrow. He is one of 7 people facing execution in Oklahoma in the next 6 months. If carried out, they will be first executions to take place in Oklahoma since 2015. Here is what you need to know about Julius Jones. I'm going to make this a little bit larger for you. Here we go. Julius Jones was at home having dinner with his parents and sister at the time of the murder. However, his legal team failed to present his alibi at his original trial. His trial attorneys did not call Mr. Jones or his family members to the stand. See what I was telling you about the criminal justice system? How could they leave that out? 2, Mr. Jones did not match the description of the person who committed the crime. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know how many times this happens? Do you know how many times? Thanks so much, Roger Meadows, for the super chat. Malcolm X killers exonerated by New York DA today. Yes, I know. I heard about that after I posted my stream. But yeah, I got to talk about that too. Maybe I'll talk about that Friday because I don't stream tomorrow. Balls. It's just so much news, so much things to go through. Going forward here, Mr. Jones, okay, he did not match the description. That's something you need to know. The person who killed Mr. Howell was described as having 1 to 2 inches of hair, but Mr. Jones had a shaved head. They think all black men look alike. This is a common problem. We saw that happen with the Central Park Five. Remember that story? Third, a man named Christopher Jordan matched the eyewitness's hair description, but claimed only to have been the getaway driver and not the shooter at the trial. He was the state's star witness against Mr. Jones. In exchange for testifying that Mr. Jones was the shooter, Mr. Jordan was given a plea deal for his alleged role as the getaway driver. He served 15 years in prison and today he is free. This man was not sentenced to death. Fourth, 3 people incarcerated with Mr. Jordan at different times have said he is sworn affidavits that Mr. Jordan told each of them that he committed the murder and framed Mr. Jones. None of these 3 men have met Mr. Jones and they do not know one another. And none of them have been offered a shorter sentence or incentive in exchange for disclosing Mr. Jordan's confessions. And you can see people protesting here. By the way, students actually staged a walkout today to protest this as well. They walked out of the schools. The impact of racial bias in this case. Mr. Howe, a white man, was killed in a predominantly white neighborhood. Immediately, the DA, Bob Macy, characterized the crime as an act of violence committed by black men fueled by drugs. The narrative was perpetuated by the media coverage. We see this happen often. 2, the officer who arrested Mr. Jones called him the N-word and dared him to run, then implied he would shoot him if he did. Do you guys see the bias? Do you see what happens? Like, this is what black men go through. And I'm not going to get into the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing, but I do want to make this statement here. I watched that video that Matt Orff made. And one of the things that really stood out to me is the fact that the police were right down the street. When the shootings were going on, when people were fighting, they didn't intervene. So here you have a white boy walking down the street with a gun who was able to walk right up to the police officers and they didn't even arrest him. But Julius Jones is told by a police officer, calls him the N-word, dares him to run, and then implied he would shoot him if he did. So again, I'm not going to get into the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing. But race does play a factor in how you were treated by the police. Now, that is not to say that police don't attack white people too, because they do. I saw a police officer in New York City jack up a white woman. It was a guy. Jack up a white woman and punch her in the face. We have a problem with the justice system in this country. And I want to ask you, why are more people talking about this case, this trial? Let's go on. 3, 11 out of the 12 jurors at Mr. Jones' trial were white. 11 out of 12. We see this happening right now with Ahmaud Arbery. They only have 1 black juror. The trial hasn't even started yet. You already see the bias. 1 juror referred to Mr. Jones by the N-word and suggested that he'd been taken out behind the courthouse and shot. 4, 1/3 of District Attorney Macy's death penalty convictions have been overturned due to prosecutorial misconduct. Many of those whose convictions were vacated are black people. You see the problem? To date, 10 people sentenced to death in murder cases in Oklahoma have been exonerated. Let me pop out. That's just a piece of it. That is just a piece. So other people have gotten involved to ask for the governor to give him clemency. Kim Kardashian, as much as she annoys me, is one of those people who went down there to say, listen, just talk to the family. The governor, I showed you the video. The governor doesn't even want to talk to the family. Why? Why? Because he wants to get reelected. Because he's in a red state and he knows that if he wants to please his constituents and he wants to be reelected, he's going to have to go by their playbook. he's going to have to do what his constituents want him to do. Don't believe this is not political. It should not be, but it is. I've lived in the South. I've lived in these red states in the South. I know how it works. How could you not even talk to the family? Infamous said, Black people need to start leaving the United States. Because at one point in time, I really thought about moving to Canada, but it's just too cold. Too cold. They have good food. Good food. Too cold. And I live in Boston and I'm saying it's too cold. So there you go. James Root says, bingo, Sabby. Do you see what I'm saying? How could you leave out important key facts in the case? How could you leave out evidence? You have a guy saying that he's the one who did the murders and they won't even consider it. They won't even consider it. This guy is going to die tomorrow. He's been in prison for 20 years. Now I want to share with you this letter. Now this is from Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Baker Mayfield. I find him to be pretty annoying on the football field. But football aside, let's get into it. Case study QB. Boop, boop, whoop, whoop. What's up? I got to get you to come on. I don't know why I'm yelling. I got to get you to come on. What do you think of the new Boston mayor? I told people on my stream, let's see what she does. Let's not praise her. Let's not be a hero. I had a feeling that she would be the one to win, but I'm not going to get excited about identity politics because that's when we go down that path and then they don't do what we want them to do and then we get upset. But she was the favorite here. She does have a lot of support and she has done good things here. But again, like I said, I'm going to wait and see what she does. But I think out of all the people that were running, she was the top one. Roger Meadows, thanks for the super chat. Hey, you leave Kim alone with her curvy self. Oh, Roger, come on. Come on, really? The Kardashians? Okay, let me share my screen. I want to show you this letter. Now, the fact that you have Baker Mayfield is a white man. He came out in support of Julius Jones. And he did this last year, you guys. So this wasn't new. This is how long this has been going on. Now, this letter says May 28th of 2020. It's been over a year. Dear Governor Stitt and members of the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board. Oklahoma has been a home to myself, my former teammates and coaches, and a place of incredible support for many years. I care deeply for the people of Oklahoma. And that is why I am eagerly writing in support of Julius Jones, a young man I believe has been wrongly convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Based on my personal review, the errors and shortcomings in Julius' trial have been well documented and are too numerous to be listed in this letter. The inconsistent and unchallenged testimony of Julius' co-defendant, the obviously inexperienced and unmotivated defense team, and the eyewitness description of a shooter that clearly did not match Julius are by themselves enough to cast doubt on his guilt. Now you hear what he is saying. It's enough to cast doubt. So how can you sentence someone to death if there's doubt? Beyond the obvious shortcomings of the trial, another issue that continues to weigh on me is the obvious, this is coming from Baker Mayfield, the obvious racial bias that permeated Julius' arrest, prosecution, and conviction. Every American is supposed to be guaranteed a fair and impartial trial, but we know that don't happen. But when your arresting officer calls you the N-word, when a juror calls you the N-word, when all of this unfolds in the context of decades of death penalty convictions slanted against Black men, it is impossible to conclude that Julius received fair and impartial treatment. The Oklahomans I met are not racist. They are not mean-spirited, and they do not wish to participate in injustice in this day and age. That is why I am confident that when Oklahomans become aware of the facts surrounding Julius Jones and his conviction, they will demand that his sentence be commuted. I am honored to use my voice to speak up for Julius Jones. I ask respectfully that you review his commutation application with fairness and compassion. Boomer, sincerely, Baker Mayfield, Cleveland Browns, Oklahoma University alumni. Let me come out. Because, guys, this is what it looks like to be an ally. Now, someone brought up the question of allyship last night. That's being an ally. Not only did he say that he needs to be released, that he is innocent, but he also pointed out the racial bias. And he's a white man. That is being an ally. That is how you do it. And that puts Baker Mayfield in a interesting position as well. Because in a sense, that can kind of put his career on the line, right? Depending on who he's working with, who he has endorsements with that don't like this type of behavior or may not like the fact that he's standing up for his Black friend. That's being an ally. That's not unity. That is solidarity. He is putting Julius Jones' needs before his own. That is how you do it. So I have to say, can you please tell everybody that you know about this story? Because everyone I spoke to today was not aware of it. They didn't know who Julius Jones was. This message needs to get out to as many people as possible. Because the fact that, again, I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't. I think it's bullshit. I don't think it solves anything. And I don't think we're the ones that get to decide, like, whether someone should live or not. But the fact that this man has been in prison for 20 years now, 20 years. When he was sentenced to death. Sentenced to death. We have seen other cases in this country where people have killed people. They weren't sentenced to death. Thank you so much, Disco Phil. I like that name. Didn't parole board ask for clemency for Jones? So they were trying to ask for clemency. The governor, oh, you might have missed this part, Disco. The governor would not refuse to meet with the family. So I played that video a couple minutes ago, but the governor said that no, that he would not meet with the family. And the family said they were willing to wait as long as it took, that they weren't in a rush. And this is just so sad. It's heartbreaking. Jacory says 2,821 exonerations since 1989. Over half of these were for Black Americans. There you go. There you go. I mean, I don't know what we can do to fix the criminal justice system. I don't think it can be fixed. I think it has to be torn down and it has to be rebuilt because the system that we have is so corrupt and we have tried to fix it. We've tried to, let's make sure we get a prosecutor that is not living in this town so there won't be any bias. Let's make sure. I mean, we saw this with, I don't know if you guys saw the documentary Making a Murderer. You guys remember this was like a popular documentary and like I found myself watching that and all of a sudden I felt like I was a lawyer and I was like, oh, that wasn't there before. Yeah. But there was a lot of corrupt behavior from the police department in that documentary as well. And that's why I was just like, look, just throw it out because they were planting evidence. Like, so I don't feel like it's something that can be fixed. I feel like you have to tear it down and you have to start all over and build something new. because there's so much bias in the criminal justice system that we have in this country. I've said this before. A black guy, white guy can do the same crime, have no priors, and the black guy gets a harsher sentence. And that doesn't start with prison system. That doesn't start with the criminal justice system. That starts with the school system, where black kids are actually punished more harshly than white kids for doing the same thing. This starts when black kids are young. So it's ingrained in you. Like, you grow up with this. You feel like you have to be overly nice so people don't think you're angry. And I realized a long time ago, people are going to call you angry anyway, so might as well just be angry. This is what black people have to go through in this country. Oh, thanks so much, Eric. Eric said, the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board recommended granting clemency to Julius Jones, a man sentenced to death for a murder he says he did not commit. So they did recommend it. And it's the governor that's holding it up. And that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate. That one person. I see, I might get a little, okay, there we go. That one person is holding it up. And no other reason than re-election. Re-election. Now I ask you this, if Julius Jones was white, do you think the governor would have behaved the same way? If Julius Jones was white, he probably wouldn't have even been sentenced to death. Might have been given the benefit of the doubt. But the fact that the lawyers representing Julius Jones didn't even mention those key facts during the trial is very, very upsetting. Now, I don't know if he paid for his own lawyer or if he was given one by the state. But I will tell you this. When you hear on shows like Law and Order and they arrest someone and they say, if you can't afford, representation, you'll be given representation by the state. I always cringe when I hear that because those lawyers suck. I'm sorry. If no one wants to say it, I'll say it. Everybody knows when you're given representation by the state, that's not a good thing. It's just not. Going to some of the comments in the chat. Valerie said, sounds state appointed. Yeah, I think so. I'd have to go back and check. And like with this story, I had to do some digging because there were certain things, like I'd click on an article and the article was like one paragraph and I'm like, where's the rest of the story? So people need to know about this. People need to know about this. Perry said, it's unfortunate we're playing the race card. Is he guilty or not? Well, no, Perry, it's actually not unfortunate because when a police officer arrests him and calls him the N-word and one of the jurors calls him the N-word, that is 100% racially based. So no, this is not about the race card when people are using racial slurs against you and then you're sentenced to death. Sorry, got to call it out. Going on to the next story. So you guys, please share that with as many people as you can. He will be executed tomorrow if nothing changes in between now and then. And this is very unfortunate. And I've said this before and I said it again. I do not believe in the death penalty. Do you guys know it costs more to sentence someone to death than it does to keep them in prison the entire time? You know how much it costs to actually kill someone? It's very expensive. Last time I checked, it was like a couple million. Why do you have to kill this person? That's not rehabilitation. See, this is where they get you with the prison system is supposed to rehabilitate you. If it's supposed to rehabilitate you, then why are you sentencing people to death? Shout out to Delthea Simmons for the super chat. A white person died and a blood sacrifice is necessary. Whether or not it's the blood of his actual killer is not relevant. Somebody has to die. Well said, Delthea. Thanks so much for the super chat. It's just so bad. It's just so bad. Smash that like button, guys. You know, I forget to say that sometimes, but please do that. But definitely please share that story. I'm going into my final story tonight. What is going on with Kamala Harris? What is going on at the White House? Because Kamala Harris is not looking too well right now. Is not looking too well. There are rumors that White House officials may be looking for a replacement for Kamala Harris. They are not happy with her. They do not feel like she is doing a good job. I mean, I don't even see Kamala Harris half the time. And when I do see her, she's walking. So I don't know. Her aides that work for her are not happy working for her. Her and Joe Biden are having like a spat. Thanks so much for the super chat, Roger. National fund needed. We can donate to help low-income families hire defense attorneys to work pro bono. That's a good idea, Roger. That's another form of mutual aid that we could do, you guys. Because I'm telling you, those state attorneys suck. Just don't go that route if you can help it. Just no. They are providing it for you. I'm going to share my screen because, sorry, Brianna Joy Gray was recently on Rising talking about this very same thing. And I want you to hear what she has to say, because it sounds like they are looking for a replacement for Kamala Harris. Let me mute my mic.
West-wing aides have largely thrown up their hands at Vice President Kamala Harris and her staff, deciding there simply isn't time to deal with them right now.
The piece clearly caught the attention of the White House and other Democratic allies of Harris, who quickly coalesced around the vice president and attempted to squash the rumors. Press Secretary Jen Psaki tweeted that the VP is, quote, not only a vital partner to President Biden, but a bold leader who has taken on key important challenges facing the country. Here's what Representative Jim Clyburn said about the reporting.
I've been reading about this, but I'm not aware of anything of that sort. I was at the vice president's residence not very long ago. I didn't detect anything of any kind of tension, but I don't detect anything that anybody should be concerned about.
No offense, but Jim Clyburn doesn't detect anything anyway. Anything the Democrats are doing, he doesn't detect it anyway. Let's just be real. So I don't know why they got his word, but let's hear what Brianna Joy Gray has to say.
Brianna Joy Gray, former National Press Secretary for the Sanders campaign and host of Bad Faith Podcast, is here to give her take on the reporting, whether it could signal a turning tide in how the media treats Harris. Good to see you, Brianna.
It's good to see you as well.
So on one hand, I always like to be careful because, you know, this hit piece on Harris was pegged to a lot of, you know, anonymous reporting. And I think it's very easy to get people to gossip and say bad things about their bosses and coworkers if you give them total anonymity. On the other hand, you know, we do know, I think that Harris is not as popular with the public as the White House would like her to be. It has saddled her with a lot of unenviable tasks, and that has not helped her. What do you think?
Yeah, the real concern here the White House should have is not some bad press, but the fact that from the beginning, the people have never been that fond of Kamala Harris. She has historically low approval ratings for a vice president, especially considering that she hasn't done much of anything. And let's not forget how poorly she failed in the Democratic primary when many people felt as though she was going to be a front runner very early on.
I'm sorry, but it's still funny to me that they thought that Kamala Harris could be president of the United States, that they actually thought people wanted her to win. People did not like her when she was running for president. I don't know why they thought that she would win over people when she became VP, but we really don't like her.
I think you wrote an article in The Intercept pointing out that Bernie Sanders outpaced her with Black voters by a 2-to-1 margin, you know, that she had to drop out of the primary before her own state of California because she was polling, I believe, 5th behind Andrew Yang. And all the while, the media still tried to frame her as the next Barack Obama, this great kind of mixed race hope that was going to be a unifier for the country in some really reductive way. And I think that might have worked against her because a lot of people woke up to the fact that representational politics doesn't move the country forward in the way that people had hoped with Barack Obama. And they were waiting for her to show up with some actual charisma, with an agenda, with a plan, with policies that really matched the moment. She never did. And now she's in this position where she's having to rise and fall on her own merits. And what we see now is that she is in fact falling.
And as somebody who's covered White Houses and covered Congress for a long time, I can say that if you want to write one of these stories with people on the deep periphery, and give them anonymity, that's fairly easy to do. But to get quotes like that and to get insight like that from people who are kind of in the inner circle is actually not that easy to do, even granting anonymity. And this is the third or fourth major piece like this. If you remember, the New York Times had a devastating piece after her campaign imploded. And there was, I think Politico did one maybe several months ago. And so, this is of a piece with that reporting. Is there something about it being at CNN.com that is even more kind of frightening to Harris for her political prospects? CNN has almost supplanted MSNBC as the kind of lodestar or the North Star for Democratic primary voters. If you've lost CNN, what hope do you have as a Democrat?
I'm not sure about the outlet, but what raised big red flags for me was all of the covering that comes out of the Jen Psaki tweet, the Jim Clyburn appearance. It has very much the air of the kid who comes home from school complaining about bullying and the mother who says, "Don't worry about it, honey. Everybody loves you. You're perfect. Never change." It's a kind of delusional sort of gaslighting, and it very much has the feeling of thou dost protest too much.
And also, did you notice that Psaki in that tweet mentioned that she had been given the border as an issue, which is a major bone of contention for Harris, because she feels like she's been saddled with this unwinnable issue that is, that is going poorly for Democrats, and for Psaki to be like, no. Actually, we love Kamala Harris. In fact, she's managing the border.
Yeah, well, this brings up this question that people have raised for months now as to whether or not Harris is being intentionally set up by the White House. Now, the article points out that Joe Biden says that he gave Kamala Harris that assignment because that's the assignment that he had been given by Barack Obama. However, the fact that she was given that and also voting rights reform, when we all know that can't go forward without filibuster reform, which Joe Biden has been pretty consistently not for
Yes.
in a meaningful way, not advancing it, obviously, is intentionally putting her in a position where they can have a plausible excuse to move past her. The article cites a possibility of moving her into a Supreme Court position in a way to promote her up and out of the way to make room for someone like Pete Buttigieg. And many kind of Black consensus builders on the internet were tweeting furiously, outraged about the idea that they would pass over the first Black woman VP for Pete Buttigieg and saying that Black voters were going to revolt. However, I'm skeptical that Black voters are going to do much of anything, given that there was an unprecedentedly large outpouring of interest in the streets last summer with the George Floyd protests that resulted in zero concessions out of Joe Biden and just a faithful promise to vote for him no matter what, as long as it prevents a Republican from being in office.
Yeah, the whole thing.
All right. Definitely check out that video if you didn't have a chance to. It's longer than that, obviously, but I can't play the whole thing here. You guys will kill me. But anyway, I want to say shout out to Roger Meadows. Do you know how many likes I got when I responded to Roland when he said, if Dems wanted to see a Black female revolt, go ahead and try this. You are guaranteed to lose. Thanks so much for the super chat, Roger Meadows. Oh, Roland is a trip, isn't he? So notice how she mentioned like Pete Buttigieg. And this is something I want you guys to pay close attention to, because one thing I've noticed over the past couple of weeks, even CNN has come out against Kamala Harris. Even CNN is attacking her. I told you they did that story about her aides, saying that they don't want to work with her, that it's a hostile environment. They also talked about the fact that her and Joe Biden are not getting along. It's interesting, right? Like the media, like they'll pump you up and then they tear you down. Ask Eminem, he knows about that. He talked about that before. They'll put you up and then they take you down. That's what they're doing to Kamala Harris right now. Now, again, I don't think that Kamala Harris should have been put in that position. I don't think Kamala Harris was ready to be vice president. But who am I, right? They wanted to give us representation. They wanted to give us a face. They wanted to give us a brown face that says, hey, look, you have a Black and Asian vice president who's also a woman. Representation. Here we go. But then she doesn't do anything. She doesn't do anything. Every time we see her, she's just walking. She's not as visible. Like when Biden was under Obama, he was visible. So they assign tasks to her that they know she really was not qualified for. And that's what Bree was just talking about that there. Even with the border situation, you would give her that assignment? Really? It's just, and I'm not taking it for Kamala Harris here at all. I said before, she was not a good pick for this. But representation, boo, representation. Shout out to ABCD. Yeah. Thanks so much for the super chat. Kamala and or Booty are going to be the reason the country will fall to Trump in 2024. There is literally no hope now since progressives sold out. Oh, you are speaking the truth. You are speaking the truth. So they have put out all of this negative information about Kamala Harris the past couple of weeks, especially since her approval rating has decreased even more. Her approval rating is lower than Joe Biden's, which is interesting because she's not really doing anything. So Joe Biden, last I checked, was at 38%. I think she's now at 28%. I'll have to double check that, but it was that percentage last week when I did my stream. But on the other hand, the media has really been hyping up Pete Buttigieg over the past couple of weeks. So let me show you this. Listen to this. Booty's star rises as 1 trillion Biden agenda shifts towards him. Look at this. Booty's star rises. See what they're doing? They have been talking great about him for a while. They keep propping him up. I want to go down here and read a little bit of this. Pete Buttigieg, the Transportation Secretary who holds the purse strings to much of President Joe Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure package, was holding forth with reporters on its impacts, the promise of more electric cars, intercity train routes, bigger airports, when a pointed question came. How would he go about building racial equity into infrastructure? Here we go. The 39-year-old former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate laid out his argument that highway design can reflect racism, noting that at least $1 billion in the bill will help reconnect cities and neighborhoods that had been racially segregated or divided by road projects. Now, I know some people didn't like this statement, but I can actually tell you from experience here in Boston, that actually is a thing. Now, it's getting a little bit better, but at one point in Boston, the North End, which was an Italian neighborhood, Italian people don't really live there now because of gentrification. That's another story. Was separated by a highway. I think it was 93 that ran through there. Was separated by a highway. South Boston was nowhere near. So it was like it was almost done in a way to keep certain groups separated. Just being honest with you. And you see that also if you go to Roxbury, if you go to Dorchester, it's almost to the point where they make it more difficult for you to get to those neighborhoods. That actually is on purpose. Now, I'm not a fan of Pete, but he is right about that. That actually was a thing. Shout out to Roger for the super chat. Roland, only sisters in upper class part of political elite is feeling her. You speak to everyday working class, low income sisters struggling. They're not. Yeah. Roland Harris is a trip. I don't know if you guys watch him, but yeah, he doesn't get it. Thanks so much for the super chat. But they are speaking very, very, great about him. And they've been doing this for the past couple weeks. If you pay attention, they keep talking about Pete, keep pumping him up. And then you see Kamala in the news past couple of weeks has not been good. Now, they said she did well when she went overseas recently. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to really look into that story. But even with that, they're still putting out a lot of negative things about her. And that has come after her polling numbers are continuing to drop. So listen to this. He also engaged with young climate activists and took photos with former President Barack Obama. There you go. They got to mention Obama because that really pumps people up for some reason, but not me. So they are really pumping up Pete Buttigieg, and they are not pumping up Kamala Harris. And this is what can happen sometimes when you want to put a person in a position so that you can have diversity, so you can have representation, not asking if that position is right for that person, not asking if that person is going to be prepared to do that job and do it well, not asking if they have all the assistance that they need to do their job well, because representation. And what can happen is when people are put in those positions and they don't have the resources they need, or they're not prepared and they shouldn't have been put in that position to begin with, they fail. And then when they fail, everybody will point to them and say, oh, well, we tried it with a Black woman before and look how that turned out. So I did not think she was the right pick. Joe Biden was not the right pick. This is why they are polling so low. And I wasn't expecting Biden to just snap his fingers and make everything change overnight. But Joe Biden was a horrible candidate. Going in, if you watch the Democratic debates, he was not the person who should have been the front runner. Joe Biden didn't even know where he was half the time. He went on this rant about some guy named Corn Pop, who I still don't know what that had to do with the question that was asked. So we saw even then there was cognitive decline, and the media was still trying to pump him up and push him. And so essentially you have a man sitting in the White House as president that is not equipped to be president. And then you put in a woman, a Black woman, Black and Asian woman under him who was also not equipped to be vice president. You are handing it over to Republicans. But Trump's out, so that's what mattered, right? Isn't that what they told us? They're doing a horrible job. They're doing a horrible job. Bill said this kind of garbage undermines the real discussions about race and representation that needs to be had. And don't get me wrong, like, guys, I'm certified in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm certified in that. So I do understand that representation is important. I'm an advocate for that. That being said, you don't just put someone in so that you can say that you have that representation. You have to make sure that they have what they need to be successful and that they're the right person for that job. And I said this going back in, Kamala Harris was not the right person to be VP. Now we see it. She's not ready for this. We saw when she had that interview, when they were talking to her about the border crisis. And she said, they were like, but you've been to the border, right? She was like, oh, yes, we've been to the border. And they said, but no, you haven't been to the border. And she said, well, no, I haven't been to the border, but I also haven't been to Europe. That was terrible. That was terrible. I don't know who prepped her for that speech. I don't know if anybody prepped her for that interview. But how do you go in blind like that? How do you go in blind? Because some politicians will actually ask, and not just politicians, celebrities and other people being interviewed will actually ask, can you give me a list of the questions that you're going to ask me? But she looked totally like taken aback by that question. And she did not have a good answer for it. And Biden administration was not happy with her after that interview. No. So again, but representation. So if they try to bring in Pete Pete, I'm sorry, I need to stop saying that. If they try to bring in Pete and kind of push out Kamala, that's not going to work out either, because then the people who really do like Kamala Harris are going to be like, oh, you pushed out the black woman with the white guy. You see what I mean? Like, you can't win now. You can't win now. Like, it's just terrible at this point. Robert said LMAO, Biden was passing gas that time. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Aya says Corn Pop, never forget that name. Yeah, I know. I was like, who the hell is Corn Pop? What is he talking about? Prophetician said, what has Pete done? Well, he is gay, qualified, shit mayor though. You know, it was interesting that he mentioned the racial divide, the racial segregation due to like roads and highways. It was interesting he mentioned that because Pete did not do well with black people in South Bend, Indiana. They did not like him multiple times. They challenged him on issues. Did you know there was a black boy who went missing and then they found him hanging from a tree? Like someone hung him. And they went to Pete to do something about it. He didn't do anything about it. He told the mother that he would, yes, we'll look into it. Never help them. Never help them. When a black police officer reported racial discrimination in the police department, see, this is why cops usually stick together, because when you one of them turn on you, they push you out. Reported racial discrimination in the police department and reported that his fellow police officers were using racist language. Do you know what Pete Buttigieg did? He got rid of the black guy who reported it instead of handling the people who were racist. So Pete Buttigieg does not have a good history as a politician with black people. And so if they think that bringing in Pete under Biden is going to sway people in some way to be like, yeah, I'm voting for Biden this time around, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think, if you really want to turn away black voters, that's really going to be a problem. Really going to be a problem. I don't know. I wouldn't say that he's racist proficient. I would just say that it was obvious at the time he was really young, and I just felt like he was not equipped to deal with those issues. And so I think he felt like, well, I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that later. And he never got back to it, and he never got around to it. And then he decided to run for president, and he expected black people in that community not to stand up and speak out. So, I'm sorry. They tried to push him on us with identity politics too. Because CNN and MSNBC, they were like, he would be the first, gay president. And I'm like, okay, cool. What has he done? And he has done some good things in South Bend, but when it comes to his relationship with the black community there, that was not a good relationship. And that's a problem. This is part of the reason why he didn't do well with black voters. Thanks so much, Roger, for the super chat. Tell Charlemagne who pushed Cam on Joe on us to shut the fuck up. Tell Charlemagne who pushed Kamala on Joe on us to shut the fuck up. Yeah. Funny thing, some of you may know this. If you're new here, you probably do not. Charlemagne was actually friends with my best friend when I was in college. I went to school, University of South Carolina, and we lived in Columbia, South Carolina. And they were friends. He was actually her neighbor at that time. That's when he still did local radio. That was before he moved to New York to do the Wendy Williams show. That was before Wendy Williams was on TV. She was on radio. So he has come very far, very far. Sean said the problem with Democrats is they're trying to keep their wife and their mistress under the same roof. Oh. That is a good one, Sean. Does Sean get the comment for the week, you guys? Who gets the comment for the week? That is a good one. I like that. All right. I like that a lot. James said, if you're getting your political takes from some asswipe who nicknamed himself the God, you need to stop smoking that Delta 8. It's trash. Oh, James. Oh. Leroy says, shout out to Leroy. He's a Sabby member. Charlemagne had a rape charge in South Carolina. What? Oh, I did not know that one. Damn. Leroy always coming with the receipts. I did not know that. Yikes. That does not sound good. Not sound good. Ashura said, when Charlemagne the God is getting R. Kelly'd. Whew. Well, so you guys know more about this than me. That was the first time I'm hearing that. James said, I like how Sabby just got that news on live stream. I know, like I did not know. Oh my gosh. And I'm telling people too. I was like, yeah, he was my friend's friend. And like, da-da-da. Oh no. Oh boy. That's tough. That's rough. Oh boy. All right, guys, we're going into 819. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you are new here, please make sure you go check out Fred Hampton Leftist, because my show is affiliated with that network. We're doing really good things over there. Roundtable is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's always a fun time because you get to see all of us together. Pretty cool. Guys, make sure you hit that like button from Eric Thomas. He's telling you guys to do that. Make sure you do that. That helps with the algorithm. And also, if you want to join my Discord group, I forget to tell people that you can join my Discord server, jump on there, have fun and chat with people. I'm not the best at it myself, but I'm still learning. Thanks so much, Harry, for the super chat. Who here Kamala's racist trees question? She was supposed to be talking about conservation and reforestation, but bizarrely kept asking about trees races. What? I didn't know about that. I'll have to check that out. I was not familiar with that. That is interesting. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks so much for the super chat, Emperor Forever. Keep it going, Sabs. Thank you so much. Awesome. All right, guys. If you like what I do here and you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/Sabrina Salvati. Or if you want to get Sabby merch, you can do that too. That link is in the details tab of this video, along with my many other links. If you do not have time to watch videos, Sabby Sabs podcast is also on Spotify and iHeartRadio. Those are just my interviews. So these kind of streams where I do the news, I don't put that on Spotify and iHeartRadio because it would be a little weird because I'm sharing my screen and you kind of need to see what I'm talking about sometimes. So if you want to see the interviews like with Danny Haifong, Richard Wolf, those are also on Spotify and iHeartRadio. So some people like to listen to audio when they're on their way to work. So just letting you guys know, because I forget to mention that sometimes that I'm there. But yeah, thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. Had a fun time. I won't be here tomorrow because I'll be on Roundtable. I'll be there a little bit late because I have a student event, but I'll be there on FHL Roundtable tomorrow. I'll be back here Friday night, and my Friday night is my fun stream. So, all right, guys, you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.